The blood of 1,000 worlds stained Jason Phillips's hands. He gripped the railing of his research vessel Odyssey, knuckles white as he stared at the brooding ochre sphere of Zeta Prime swelling in the viewport. Ancient secrets festered deep beneath that foreboding world's parched skin, secrets that could spell humanity's ascension to galactic lords, or the eternal damnation of mankind's soul. Jason had sacrificed everything to discover this forbidden planet: his integrity, his life savings, the trust of the United Earth Council. He assembled this rogue crew of scientists and soldiers to unearth Zeta Prime's hidden powers at any cost. Powers whispered of only in the blackest depths of the astronet's underground data streams. Powers that promised humans the strength to throw off the chains of the galaxy's bloated alien empires and take their rightful place as the supreme rulers of the stars. Powers that would make humans as gods, immortal, invincible, unstoppable. But if Jason failed in this desperate mission, then humanity was doomed. The crumbling United Earth Alliance would collapse under its own rotten bureaucracy, Earth's fleets and armies crushed beneath the boots and tentacles of a dozen hungry alien states. The human race itself would be enslaved, tortured, and finally exterminated like vermin infesting the galaxy. Jason tightened his fist. He would not let that happen. He would find the source of the mysterious energy lurking in Zeta Prime's ancient ruins. He would seize that power for humanity, no matter how forbidden or blasphemous. And if any feeble alien stood in his way, by God on earth, Jason would paint the stars red with their blood. Varys fixed his ancient gaze upon Jason. The Ferengi were not always as you see me now, withered and diminished. Once, eons ago, we were the mightiest race in the galaxy. Our technology, our culture, our very bodies and minds, all were unrivaled. The alien's voice grew heavy with memory. We discovered the secret to immortality, to power beyond imagining, but it came at a terrible price. We grew drunk on our own abilities, corrupted by the very forces we sought to control. Brother turned against brother in a war that shattered suns and left worlds barren. Varys gestured to the glowing obelisk. To prevent our power from consuming the galaxy, those few of us who survived sealed it away within this monument, along with our own consciousness. Here, we have waited for countless ages, for one worthy to claim our legacy. The Ferengi met Jason's eyes. I have watched humanity from the void between stars. I have seen your kind struggle and strive, wage war and make peace. And you, Jason Phillips, shine brightest among them. Your spirit remains uncorrupted, your will unbreakable. You alone are fit to wield the power of the Ferengi. Varys extended a wizened hand. The choice is yours. Accept our gift and become the guardian the galaxy cries out for, or return to your mortal existence and let the secrets of the Ferengi fade into oblivion. Jason felt the weight of destiny upon him, the power to elevate humanity, to forge an eternal Terran empire that would bring order to a chaotic universe. It was within his grasp. The cost was high, but the prize was beyond measure. He met the Ferengi's unblinking stare. I accept. Varys smiled. Then let your apotheosis begin. The trials were like nothing Jason had ever imagined. Mental and physical anguish merged into one unending torment as Varys guided him through the obelisk's labyrinthine interior. Time lost all meaning. Jason's very identity seemed to melt away, replaced by an all-consuming need to push himself further, harder, faster. With every challenge overcome, he felt the Ferengi's power growing within him. His flesh hardened into living armor, his senses expanded beyond the limits of the electromagnetic spectrum, and his mind, oh, his mind, it drank in the secrets of the universe until the very foundations of reality lay bare before him. An eternity passed, or perhaps only a heartbeat, and then Jason was standing once more beneath the starry skies of Zeta Prime, but he was Jason no longer. The Odyssey hung in orbit above, and he willed himself to its bridge in a flash of golden radiance. His crew scrambled back in shock and terror as he coalesced from the ether, an avatar of pure energy. Gone was the frail human form they had known. In its place stood a being of impossible majesty, transfigured by the Ferengi's boundless might. "Captain," whispered his first officer, "is that you?" "It is," said Jason, his voice resonant with the wisdom of ages. "And yet it is not. I have become something more, something greater." He turned to face the view screen, where the stars glittered in their multitudes. "The Ferengi have entrusted me with their power to protect our people and maintain the balance of the galaxy. That is my purpose now, my duty." Jason raised a hand, and the Odyssey leapt into warp, hurtling toward the distant light of home. "We have work to do." The Odyssey hurtled through the void, its crew still reeling from the revelation of Jason's apotheosis. He stood on the bridge, a being of pure energy and limitless potential, his very presence setting the air ablaze with power. But there was little time to ponder the implications of his transformation, for the ship's sensors soon detected a massive fleet on an intercept course. The Zorgan Empire, led by the ruthless Emperor Craxus, had caught wind of Jason's newfound abilities and saw him as a threat to their millennia-long reign of conquest and subjugation. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the gnarled visage of Craxus himself. His eyes, black as the depths of space, fixed upon Jason with a mixture of hatred and hunger. "So the legends of the Ferengi's power are true," he rasped, his voice like gravel underfoot, "and they have chosen a mere human as their champion. Pitiful." Jason met the Emperor's gaze unflinchingly. "I am Jason Phillips, captain of the Odyssey and guardian of the galaxy. I will not allow you to continue your campaign of terror." Craxus laughed, a sound like the death rattle of worlds. "You have no choice, boy. The Zorgan Empire is eternal, and we will crush you like an insect beneath our heel." With that, the screen went dark, and the battle was joined. The Zorgon fleet, a swarm of jagged blade-like ships, descended upon the Odyssey like locusts. Jason reached out with his mind, feeling the ebb and flow of cosmic energies around him. He wove those energies into an impenetrable shield, turning away the Zorgon's devastating opening salvo. Then, with a thought, he unleashed a barrage of searing energy beams that sliced through the enemy ships like a scythe through wheat. The Odyssey danced and wove through the chaos, Jason teleporting the ship from one end of the battlefield to the other in the blink of an eye. The crew worked frantically at their stations, trying to keep up with the demands of the impossible conflict raging around them. Despite Jason's best efforts, the sheer numbers of the Zorgan fleet began to take their toll. A group of boarding craft latched onto the Odyssey's hull like parasites, disgorging waves of heavily armed Zorgan shock troopers. The sounds of battle soon filled the ship's corridors as the crew fought desperately to repel the invaders. Jason, sensing the incursion, teleported himself to the front lines, his very being a weapon against the Zorgan onslaught. It was there, amidst the smoke and blood and chaos, that he found himself face to face with Emperor Craxus. The Zorgon leader was a towering figure, encased in an exoskeleton of living metal that pulsed with malevolent energy. "You fight well for a human," Craxus sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "But you are no match for the power of the Zorgan Empire." They clashed in a titanic struggle, Jason's raw, untamed energy against Craxus's centuries of battlefield experience. The Emperor's blows were like hammer strikes, driving Jason back step by step. "I too sought the Ferengi's power once," Craxus snarled, his face inches from Jason's, "but they deemed me unworthy, me, the greatest conqueror the galaxy has ever known." He redoubled his assault, his hatred lending him strength. "I will destroy you, Jason Phillips, and claim that power for myself, and then nothing will stand in my way." Jason felt the weight of the galaxy's fate pressing down upon him. He knew that if he fell here, the Zorgan Empire would be unstoppable, billions would suffer under Craxus's iron fist, and the sacrifices of the Ferengi would be for nothing. With a roar of defiance, Jason tapped into the full depths of his power. Energy surged through his being, burning away his doubts and fears. He unleashed a blast of cosmic fire that engulfed Craxus, consuming the Emperor's body and soul in a maelstrom of pure, unbridled force. The Emperor's final scream echoed through the ship as he was atomized, reduced to less than dust on the solar wind. The remaining Zorgon forces, seeing their leader fall, broke and ran, fleeing back to the dubious safety of their fleet. Jason stood amidst the wreckage of the battle, his chest heaving with exertion. The Odyssey's crew stared at him in awe and terror, their minds struggling to comprehend the scope of the power he had just displayed. He met their gazes, seeing the unspoken question in their eyes. Was he still the Jason Phillips they had known, the man who had led them on this impossible journey? Or had he become something else entirely, a being as far beyond their understanding as they were beyond an amoeba's? Jason closed his eyes, feeling the weight of his new existence settling upon his shoulders like a mantle. He had been given this power for a reason, to protect the innocent, to bring justice to the oppressed, to be a light in the darkness that had consumed the Zorgon Empire and so many others like them. He opened his eyes, fixing his crew with a look of determination. "We have a lot of work to do." News of Jason's triumph against the Zorgons raced through the galaxy like wildfire. Planets that had languished for centuries under the boots of conquerors and tyrants looked to the stars with newfound hope. They saw in Jason a champion, a liberator who could shatter the chains of their bondage and lead them into an age of freedom. Messages poured into the Odyssey from every corner of the cosmos, desperate pleas for salvation, each one more heart-wrenching than the last. Jason listened to every word, his fists clenched in righteous anger. He had been given this power for a reason, and he would not let it go to waste. "Set a course for the nearest occupied world," he told his crew. "It's time we started making a real difference in this galaxy." And so began a crusade unlike any the universe had ever seen. The Odyssey blazed a trail of liberation across the stars, Jason at its helm like an avenging angel. Dictators and despots fell before him like dominoes, their armies scatter like leaves before a hurricane. With every world freed, Jason's legend grew, until his name became a rallying cry for the oppressed and a curse upon the lips of the wicked. But there were some foes that would not be so easily toppled. On a nameless planet in the far reaches of the Outer Rim, the Odyssey found a civilization enslaved by a race of insectoid overlords known as the Clacks. These vile creatures had taken the population's free will, implanting mind control devices that turned them into little more than drones, serving the Clacks' every whim. Jason stared down at the planet's surface, his eyes glowing with cosmic fire. "This ends now," he declared. The Odyssey descended like a thunderbolt from the heavens, Jason teleporting himself and a hand-picked team of his crew into the heart of the Clacks' subterranean lairs. The air buzzed with the hum of alien machinery and the chittering of countless insectoid mandibles. Rows upon rows of the planet's inhabitants stood in perfect formation, their eyes blank and lifeless, toiling away at the behest of their Clacks masters. Rage boiled up inside Jason like a volcano. He reached out with his powers, his mind touching the enslaved population's thoughts. He could feel the Clacks' control, a skein of dark energy that ensnared their minds like puppets on strings. With a roar of fury, he ripped those strings apart, pouring his own cosmic might into the planet's people, freeing them from their mental bonds. The Clacks reacted with the speed of a disturbed hive. Soldier drones poured out of every tunnel and crevice, their exoskeletons bristling with weapons. They swarmed towards Jason and his team, a tide of chitin and malice. But Jason was ready for them. He unleashed a storm of cosmic energy, vaporizing the Clacks warriors by the hundreds. His crew fought with the courage of lions, their weapons blazing, turning the tunnels into a charnel house of shattered insectoid bodies. In the end, the Clacks were no match for the fury of Jason Phillips. Their armies lay broken, their mind control devices smashed to atoms. The people of the planet, freed at last from their enslavement, fell to their knees before Jason in tearful gratitude. They pledged themselves to his cause, swearing to stand with him against the darkness that still gripped the galaxy. And stand with him they did. As word of the Clacks' defeat spread, more and more worlds flocked to Jason's banner. What had begun as a one-man crusade became a galactic alliance, a united front against the forces of tyranny and oppression. But even as Jason's power grew, so too did the number of his enemies. In the shadowed corners of the galaxy, old hatreds stirred. Remnants of the Zorgon Empire, their glory faded but their malice undimmed, conspired with other despots and warlords to see Jason Phillips brought low. Jason knew that he could not protect the galaxy alone, and so he gathered to himself a select few, the best and brightest from 100 worlds. To each of them he granted a spark of his own cosmic power, transforming them into the guardians of the galaxy, his trusted lieutenants in the battles to come. Together, they would be the light against the darkness, the hope that would never die. For as long as Jason Phillips drew breath, the galaxy would never again bow before the forces of evil. Jason and his guardians worked tirelessly to keep the peace they had fought so hard for. They traveled from system to system, mediating disputes, providing aid, and ensuring that the galaxy remained free from tyranny. But even as they worked, Jason felt a growing sense of unease. It started as a whisper in the back of his mind, a faint but persistent feeling that something was wrong. As the days turned into weeks, the feeling grew stronger, until it was a constant presence, a dark shadow that hung over his every waking moment. He tried to ignore it at first, throwing himself into his work with even greater fervor. But the feeling would not be denied. It gnawed at him, a cold dread that settled in the pit of his stomach and refused to leave. Finally, he could stand it no longer. He gathered his guardians and told them of his concerns. "There's something out there," he said, his voice tight with tension. "Something ancient and powerful, something that threatens everything we've worked for." The guardians exchanged worried glances. They had never seen Jason like this before, so uncertain and afraid. "What is it?" asked Zack, his most trusted lieutenant. "What are we up against?" Jason shook his head. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I can feel it, a darkness that's growing stronger every day. We have to find out what it is and stop it before it's too late." He set course for Zeta Prime, the planet where he had first gained his powers. If anyone could help him understand this new threat, it was Varys, the ancient Ferengi who had guided him through his transformation. As the Odyssey entered orbit around the planet, Jason felt a sense of foreboding wash over him. The once vibrant world seemed dimmer somehow, as if a shadow had fallen across its surface. He beamed down to the planet's surface, his guardians by his side. Varys was waiting for them, his wizened face creased with worry. "Jason," he said, his voice heavy with concern, "I feared this day would come." "You know what's happening?" Jason asked, his heart racing. Varys nodded. "The Void," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "An ancient evil that the Ferengi sealed away eons ago. It is a being of pure darkness and chaos, a force that seeks to consume all life in the galaxy." Jason felt a chill run down his spine. "How do we stop it?" he asked. Varys shook his head. "I do not know," he admitted. "The Void is powerful, perhaps even more so than you, but there is a prophecy, one that speaks of a sacrifice that must be made to defeat it." Jason listened intently as Varys recounted the prophecy. As he did, a sense of grim determination settled over him. He knew what he had to do. He gathered his guardians and the armies of the worlds he had freed, preparing for the final battle against the Void. They met the enemy head-on, fighting with everything they had. But it wasn't enough. The Void's power was immense, a darkness that seemed to swallow everything it touched. Jason watched in horror as his allies fell one by one, consumed by the inky blackness. In a desperate attempt to turn the tide, Zack sacrificed himself, using his own life force to blast a hole in the Void's defenses. As he fell, Jason let out a roar of grief and rage, pouring every ounce of his power into a final, devastating attack. The battle raged on, the very fabric of the universe shaking with the force of their cosmic struggle. And then in a moment of blinding clarity, Jason saw the truth. The only way to defeat the Void was to absorb its darkness into himself. He pushed forward, ignoring the searing pain as the Void's essence tore at his very being. With one final burst of energy, he pulled the darkness into himself, letting it consume him entirely. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. And then a blinding flash of light erupted from Jason's body, a supernova of pure, radiant energy. When it faded, he was gone, his physical form disintegrated. But his essence remained, forever woven into the fabric of the universe itself. He had become something more than human, something eternal. A guardian of the galaxy watching over it from beyond the veil of mortal existence. The people mourned his loss, but they knew that his sacrifice had saved them all. The Guardians took up his mantle, continuing his work of protecting the innocent and preserving the peace he had given his life to achieve. And though Jason was gone, his presence could still be felt, a comforting warmth that suffused the stars themselves. He was there, watching over them all, a silent guardian forever keeping the darkness at bay. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.